Welcome, my friend. Today, I will tell you a story that is more than a story. It is a journey through pain and beauty, loneliness and love, fame and fall, darkness and light. It is the story of a man whose eyes speak louder than words, a man who made millions fall in love with him, not because he was perfect, but because he was real. This is the story of Johnny Depp, and if you think you already know him, trust me, you don't. This story will also help you improve your English with simple words, clear sentences, and powerful emotions. So relax, listen, and let's begin this journey from a small town to the biggest screens on earth. Part 1. A Boy with a Guitar. Johnny Depp was born on June 9, 1963, in a small town called Owensboro, Kentucky, in the United States. His full name was John Christopher Depp II. He was the youngest of 4 children, and his childhood was not easy. His family was poor, and they moved again and again, more than 20 times before Johnny was even a teenager. Can you imagine that? 20 times. New house, new school, new faces, every few months. He never felt like he belonged anywhere. He said later, "I felt like a visitor in my own life." His mother, Betty Sue, worked as a waitress. She was strong and hard-working, but she was also angry and unpredictable. She would sometimes shout, insult, or even hurt him. His father, John Depp Sr., was a civil engineer, quiet and tired. He didn't fight back. One day, when Johnny was 15 years old, his father simply left. He walked away, leaving Johnny to protect the family. Johnny once said his childhood was full of violence, sadness, and silence. He had no peace at home, so he looked for peace somewhere else. When Johnny was 12 years old, something magical happened. His mother bought him a guitar. It was old, but when he touched it, something inside him woke up. He went into his room, closed the door, and played for hours. He didn't know how to read music, but he listened, tried, and learned by himself. That guitar became his best friend, his escape, his healing. Music gave him a reason to wake up every morning. It was his world. By 16, Johnny dropped out of high school. He didn't want to study. He wanted to make music. He joined a small rock band called The Kids. They played in bars, clubs, and sometimes even for free. Johnny lived in a small apartment with very little food, but a heart full of dreams. He said later, "I didn't care about being famous. I just wanted to make music. It was everything to me." When Johnny was 20, he married Lori Ann Allison, a makeup artist. She was 25, older, kind, and supportive. Their marriage didn't last long, but Lori gave Johnny a gift that changed his life forever. She introduced him to an actor named Nicolas Cage. Nicolas looked at Johnny and said, "You have a special face. You should try acting, just once." Johnny laughed. He didn't want to be an actor. He wanted to be a rock star. But he was broke. He needed money. So he said, why not? He went to an audition for a scary movie called A Nightmare on Elm Street. He had no training, no experience, just honesty in his eyes. The director saw something real in him and gave him a small role. Johnny was killed by a bed. Yes, a bed. In one of the most famous horror scenes ever. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. Johnny said he suddenly felt something new. Acting was like music, but made with feelings instead of sound. He had found another kind of art, the art of expressing pain through stories. Think for a moment. Have you ever felt lost, but then found something, maybe a hobby or dream, that made you feel alive again? That was what music and acting did for Johnny Depp. In 1987, Johnny got his first big role in a TV show called 21 Jump Street. He played a young police officer who worked undercover in schools. The show was a huge hit. Suddenly, Johnny's face was everywhere. On posters and magazines, on walls of teenage girls' rooms. He became a heartthrob, a word that means a man everyone falls in love with. But Johnny didn't enjoy it. He didn't want to be famous. He wanted to be real. He said, I didn't want to be a product. I wanted to be an artist. So after a few seasons, when the show was at its most successful, Johnny quit. People thought he was crazy. But Johnny followed his heart, not the money. He said, I'm not a businessman. I'm a poet with a broken guitar. Up to this point, Johnny had found small pieces of peace in his guitar, in acting, in escaping fame. But soon, love would enter his life, and with it, more joy, more pain, and more lessons that shaped his soul forever. Part 2. Love, Loss, and the Art of Feeling Too Much. After leaving the TV show that made him famous, Johnny felt free again. He was not interested in money or red carpets. He wanted art. He wanted truth. And then he met her. In 1989, at a movie premiere, Johnny saw a young actress, Winona Ryder. She was only 17, and he was 26. When their eyes met, time seemed to stop. Johnny later said, "It was love at first sight, real love, the kind that changes you." They started dating, and soon they were engaged. He called her his soulmate. He even tattooed her name on his arm, Winona Forever. They were Hollywood's golden couple, beautiful, mysterious, and deeply connected. People said they looked like two poems standing side by side. But fame is heavy, and sometimes love cannot carry the weight of the world watching. Their relationship began to break. Too much pressure, too much noise, too much pain. In 1993, they ended it. Johnny was heartbroken. He changed his tattoo from Winona Forever to Wino Forever, a sad joke hiding deep sadness. He said later, losing her was like losing myself. This was Johnny's first deep heartbreak, the kind that never really leaves. Around that same time, Johnny opened a famous Hollywood club called the Viper Room. It was dark, stylish, and full of music, a place for artists and dreamers. But on October 31st, 1993, tragedy struck. Johnny's close friend, the young actor River Phoenix, died from a drug overdose right outside the club. Johnny was in shock. He closed the club for a week. He stayed away from cameras. He sat alone with his guitar, playing sad songs for hours. He said, "There's a huge sadness that never leaves me, but I learned how to live with it." This moment changed him. He began to hide more from the world. He didn't stop acting, but he became more private, more mysterious. He carried his pain quietly, like a secret shadow in his heart. In the early 1990s, something magical happened again. Johnny met a strange and brilliant film director, Tim Burton. Tim was different. He wore black clothes, had wild hair, and saw beauty in the dark. When he met Johnny, he said, "I see myself in you. You are wonderfully broken." He gave Johnny a special role, the lead in a movie called Edward Scissorhands. Edward was not human. He was a boy made by a scientist, a boy with scissors instead of hands. He was kind, but he could not touch anyone without hurting them. Johnny read the script and cried. He said, "Edward is me. He feels too much. He doesn't belong." When the movie was released in 1990, it became a masterpiece. People all over the world cried for Edward. Johnny's quiet eyes told a story that words never could. He wasn't just acting. He was Edward. This was Johnny's rebirth. The moment the world saw not a handsome actor, but an artist. Tim Burton and Johnny became close friends, almost like brothers. They made many films together. Sleepy Hollow, 1999. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 2005. Corpse Bride, 2005. Sweeney Todd, 2007. Alice in Wonderland, 2010. Each film was strange, dark, and full of emotion, and in each one, Johnny gave a piece of his soul. Think about Edward Scissorhands. He had blades instead of hands. He couldn't touch or hold anyone without cutting them. Yet he was full of love. Sometimes people like Johnny, or maybe like you, feel too much and the world doesn't understand. But that sensitivity is not weakness. It's what makes your art real. After Winona, Johnny fell in love again, this time with supermodel Kate Moss. She was bold, beautiful, and free. Together, they were like fire, bright and dangerous. Their love was passionate, but it was also wild. They laughed loudly, fought loudly, and loved deeply, sometimes too deeply. In 1994, Johnny was arrested in New York. He had destroyed a hotel room, furniture broken, glass everywhere. When police came in, Kate was sitting quietly on the bed. Johnny said, "I was angry, that's all." He paid for the damages, but that night became one of Hollywood's most famous stories. Kate later said, "Johnny was the only man who truly took care of me, but when we broke up, I lost myself." Their relationship lasted 4 years. It was beautiful and painful, like a song that ends too soon. Johnny was now one of the most interesting men in Hollywood. Handsome, artistic, mysterious, and full of sadness. He didn't chase fame. Fame chased him. But soon, he would meet someone who would change his world again. Not through pain, but through peace. Part 3. The Father, the Pirate, and the Price of Fame. By the late 1990s, Johnny Depp had loved, lost, and searched for meaning through music and film. He had been the heartthrob, the artist, and the rebel. But something inside him was still missing. Something quiet, something pure. And then, one day, he found it. Not in Hollywood, but in France. In 1998, while filming in France, Johnny met a woman named Vanessa Paradis. She was a French singer and actress, soft-spoken and graceful. Unlike many people in Hollywood, she didn't want fame or attention. She loved quiet mornings, books, and long walks. Johnny said, "When I met Vanessa, I felt peace for the first time in my life." They fell in love quickly. No big parties, no loud headlines, just two souls connecting. and in 1999, their love brought something magical into the world. On a warm summer day in 1999, Johnny became a father. His daughter, Lily Rose Melody Depp, was born. When he held her for the first time, he cried. He said, "It was like my heart moved outside my body." 3 years later, in 2002, their son Jack Depp was born. Johnny was no longer just an actor or a musician. He was a father, and that changed everything. He stopped wild parties, drank less, and spent more time at home. He read bedtime stories, painted with his kids, and played guitar for them. He said, "My kids saved me." He and Vanessa never married, but they built a strong private life together for 14 years, far from the noise of Hollywood. In the countryside of France, Johnny found something he had never known before: peace. He cooked breakfast, walked barefoot in his garden, and watched his children grow. He said, "I would do anything to protect their happiness." In 2003, Johnny's life changed again, not through love, but through art. Disney was making a big adventure movie called Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl. They wanted Johnny to play a pirate named Captain Jack Sparrow. But Johnny didn't want to play him like a normal pirate. He had a wild idea. He told the directors, "What if Jack Sparrow walks like a rock star, talks like he's drunk, and acts like he's free?" The producers were confused. Some even asked, "Is he drunk? Is he crazy?" But Johnny didn't change a thing. He trusted his instincts. He believed in his madness. When the movie was released, the world went crazy. Captain Jack Sparrow became a global icon. People laughed, cheered, and copied his walk and voice. Johnny's unique performance made the film a massive hit. He was nominated for an Oscar and became one of the most famous faces on earth. He said, "Jack Sparrow is my alter ego. He gave me freedom." Children dressed like him. Adults admired him. The world fell in love with the pirate who danced between chaos and charm. Johnny became one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood. He played Jack Sparrow in 5 movies, earning hundreds of millions of dollars. But deep inside, he stayed humble. He said, "I never wanted fame. I just wanted to make something honest." Think about Captain Jack Sparrow. He was funny, clever, and brave, but also lost, drunk, and broken. In a way, he was Johnny himself, hiding pain behind humor. Sometimes, laughter is how we survive. Sometimes, we smile not because life is perfect, but because we are stronger than the storm. Johnny was now one of the biggest stars in the world. He had money, fame, love, and children. But behind the beautiful photos, something darker was returning. His old habits, alcohol, sadness, and loneliness, came back slowly. He said, "I don't drink to escape. I drink to feel." He bought a private island in the Bahamas, 14 homes, luxury cars, and rare art. He spent millions of dollars, often without thinking. He gave gifts to friends, helped strangers, and even spent $3 million to shoot his friend's ashes into the sky from a cannon. People said he was out of control, but Johnny said, "I don't care about money. I care about moments." Still, the world began to whisper. They said he was strange, difficult, unpredictable. But Johnny didn't explain himself. He never does. He once said, "If you love me, you'll understand. If you don't, I can't change your mind." The man who once found peace in France was beginning to lose it again. But this time the storm would come not from fame or money, but from love. And this love would change everything. Part 4. The Fall. Love, Lies, and the Courtroom of the World. Every great story has a moment when the hero falls. For Johnny Depp, that moment began with love and ended in a storm. In 2009, while filming The Rum Diary, Johnny met Amber Heard, a young actress. She was beautiful, confident, and full of energy. Johnny said, "I saw fire in her eyes, wild, bright, dangerous." At that time, he was still with Vanessa Paradis, the mother of his children. But over the next few years, Johnny's long relationship slowly ended. He and Vanessa separated in 2012, though they remained close friends and loving parents. Soon after, Johnny and Amber began dating. They looked happy, always smiling for the cameras, holding hands on red carpets. People called them Hollywood's new golden couple. In 2015, they got married. The wedding was private on Johnny's Island in the Bahamas. The sun, the sea, and the sound of waves. It looked like a dream. But sometimes, dreams are just shadows. Soon after the wedding, things began to change. The smiles disappeared. Behind closed doors, there were fights, shouting, broken things, and tears. The relationship became toxic. Both of them were angry, jealous, and full of pain. In 2016, Amber filed for divorce and accused Johnny of domestic violence. She said he had hurt her. She showed photos of bruises and told the world that she was a victim. The media exploded. Headlines shouted, "Johnny Depp, the monster!" He lost movie roles, friends, and respect. But Johnny said quietly, "I never hurt her. I would never hurt any woman." Still, nobody believed him. The world only heard one voice, hers, and Johnny stayed silent. He said, "I was guilty until proven innocent, not the other way around." Hollywood turned its back. Big studios removed him from movies. Even Disney, the home of Captain Jack Sparrow, said goodbye. The man who once made millions smile was now alone. He said, "I was canceled, broken, forgotten." Years passed. Johnny stayed quiet, living in the shadows. But silence can also be heavy, like a stone on your heart. He said, "If I don't speak now, my children will grow up believing their father is a monster. I can't let that happen." In 2018, Amber wrote an article for the Washington Post. She didn't say Johnny's name, but everyone knew. She said she was a public figure representing domestic abuse. The article destroyed what was left of Johnny's career. Finally, he said, enough. In 2020, he filed a $50 million lawsuit against Amber for defamation, for destroying his name and his life. Amber fought back with a $100 million counterclaim. The world was watching. What began as a love story had now become a war. The trial began in April 2022. It was not just a court case. It was a global event. Millions of people watched it live on YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter. For 6 weeks, Johnny sat in the courtroom. He wore black suits, dark glasses, and a calm expression. But behind his calm eyes were years of pain. When it was his turn to speak, he talked slowly, softly, and honestly. He said, I have never hit a woman in my life. I was the one who was hurt." The court heard recordings of Amber shouting and laughing. In one recording, she said, "Tell the world, Johnny, tell them I, Johnny Depp, am a victim of domestic violence, and see if anyone believes you." Those words shocked the world. For the first time, people began to listen to Johnny. Online, fans from every country began to support him. They made videos, fan art, songs, and hashtags like #JusticeForJohnnyDepp. Even people who had never met him said, "We believe you." One fan wrote online, "We grew up with him. He made us laugh, cry, and dream. We won't let him be destroyed." The trial became more than a legal case. It became a fight for truth, for every person who had ever been wrongly accused or silenced. On June 1st, 2022, the jury made their decision. After weeks of tears, stories, and evidence, the courtroom went silent. The judge read the words, "We, the jury, find in favor of Johnny Depp." Johnny had won. The court said Amber's statements were false and hurtful. He was awarded $10 million in damages. Amber received only $2 million for a small counterclaim. Johnny didn't shout or cry. He simply smiled. A small, peaceful smile. He said, "The truth is all I ever wanted. The truth never perishes." It was over. After years of pain, silence, and humiliation, Johnny Depp was finally free. When life destroys your name, your hope, and your peace, what do? Do you give up? Or do you fight for the truth, even if the whole world doubts you? Johnny chose to fight, not with anger, but with calm, honesty, and patience. He proved that sometimes silence is not weakness, it is power. But even after the victory, the story didn't end there. Because after you win the hardest fight of your life, you must still learn how to live again. What happens when the lights go out, the cameras stop, and you're left alone with your soul? That's where our story goes next. Part 5. The Artist, the Healer, and the Man Who Found Himself Again. When the trial ended, the cameras turned off. The news moved on. But Johnny Depp didn't return to Hollywood. He didn't run back to the spotlight. He didn't chase old fame or old friends. Instead, he walked away, quietly, into peace. Johnny left America and moved back to France, far from reporters and noise. There, in a small stone house surrounded by trees and hills, he began a new life. He woke up early, without alarms. He made a simple cup of coffee. He sat by the window, watching the morning light touch the leaves. He said, "For the first time in years, I can hear my own soul." There were no red carpets, no shouting fans, no gossip, only quiet roads, the smell of fresh bread from the village bakery, and the sound of birds. He walked barefoot on the old wooden floors, fed his dogs, played guitar, and painted. He was not trying to escape the world. He was trying to find himself again. One day, Johnny began to paint. Not for money, not for fame, but for healing. He said, "Painting saved me. It gave me peace when everything else tried to destroy me." He painted faces, emotions, and memories. People who inspired him. Bob Marley, Hunter S. Thompson, Keith Richards, Heath Ledger. Each brushstroke carried part of his story. Love, pain, forgiveness. People who saw his paintings were surprised. They were not just beautiful, they were alive. every color seemed to breathe. His first art collection sold out in hours, more than $3 million in one day. But for Johnny, it was never about the money. He said, "Art is not for sale. It's for survival." At night, Johnny returned to his first love, music. He joined his rock band, the Hollywood Vampires, with Alice Cooper and Joe Perry. They toured across Europe. Crowds screamed his name again, but this time it was different. He wasn't a movie star. He was just a man with a guitar. He said, "When I play on stage, I'm not Captain Jack Sparrow. I'm the boy who never stopped dreaming." After the concerts, Johnny didn't go to big parties or fancy dinners. He stayed backstage, laughing with friends, drinking wine, and talking about life. He was finally free. Free from Hollywood, free from lies, free from the noise. In 2023, Johnny acted again, but not for a blockbuster. He chose a small, beautiful French film called Jean du Barry. He played King Louis XV, calm, wise, and mysterious. The film opened the Cannes Film Festival, one of the biggest film events in the world. When it ended, the audience stood up and clapped for 7 minutes. Johnny didn't smile too much. He just bowed, nodded, and walked away. When a reporter asked, "How does it feel to be back?" he answered, "I never left. I was just invisible." Johnny now lives a simple life. He paints, plays music, reads poetry, and spends time with his children, Lily Rose and Jack. He said, "My kids are my greatest creation, more than any movie." He teaches them about art, kindness, and how to protect their hearts in a world full of noise. Sometimes he still feels sadness. Some mornings are heavy, some nights are lonely. The scars didn't disappear, but he learned to live with them. He drinks tea instead of rum. He paints instead of arguing. He smiles, not because life is easy, but because he is free. He said, "I'm not looking for someone to complete me. I'm trying to complete myself." Johnny doesn't care about awards or fame anymore. He doesn't want the world's applause. He just wants truth, and that makes him powerful. Because a man who doesn't need the system is the most dangerous kind of artist. Now, people see Johnny differently, not just as a movie star, not just as Captain Jack Sparrow, not just as a man from a trial. He is a symbol of survival. Young artists say, if Johnny can survive everything, maybe I can too. Fans say, he taught me to fight for truth even when no one believes me. Parents say, he reminds us that kindness is not weakness. Johnny once said, "You can lose everything, your name, your money, your fame. But if you keep your truth, no one can destroy you." And maybe that's why his story matters. Not because he is famous, but because he is human. Think about it. What is the most powerful thing you can be? Not rich, not perfect, but honest. Johnny Depp's story reminds us that even if the world turns against you, your truth can bring you back to light. He was a boy from a broken home, a dreamer with a guitar, a man who lost love, fame, and hope, but never lost himself. He didn't just act, he felt. He didn't just live, he survived. And in the end, he found something stronger than fame: peace. So if you're listening to this, remember, maybe your story feels dark now. Maybe you feel lost. But this isn't the end. Keep walking, Keep believing, keep holding on to your truth, because one day your story, just like Johnny's, will shine again. If this story touched your heart, if it made you believe in yourself again, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Lingua Tales. We'll bring you more real, simple, and powerful stories to help you learn English through emotion and to remind you that your dreams matter. Thank you for being here. Until next time, stay strong, stay kind, and never stop dreaming.